laws. There were greater risks than we all realized, particularly after the Tax Reform Act of '69. There was an expenditure responsibility, Section 4945, that had very punitive attachments to it, that if you didn't, support a safe charity, or if something happened, you had to take the responsibility and so on. Unfortunately, a lot of the national foundations and even local and smaller ones, because they had to protect themselves, kind of went into a shell. People like Russ Mawby and Ted Taylor and Bill White said, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, if we see that a child is being hurt, molested, killed in some cases because of a home, an abandoned home, that's sitting there and they can't get funding because they're not a 501c3 legitimate charity with all of the things. We're going to find ways to help them. And that's how they started setting up the not-for-profit and nonprofit groups and moving them to Detroit and so on. And they said, we understand our responsibility, but we're not going to let you go and help them. You help them and if they can't, you find someone that can take that responsibility, because we want to give them the funds to tear that home down. We don't want another child injured in any way. And very few people would take that. They all took the safe route. And I can understand that. You're dealing with a lot of resources here. And so, and some of these were very punitive measures against them. But people like Russ particularly, it's just incredible how he looked at that. And then he would even have program directors and come in and say, we can't do it, they're not safe, they didn't, so on. He would challenge them and say, go back and find out how you can do it. Don't come and tell me you can't. Tell me how you can and keep us safe at the same time, but tell me how you can. There's a way we can do it, and so on. And, again, I go back to, I told you a little bit about Russ and so on. He seemed like the most casual guy, never, and so on. When he had you under the scrutiny of those eyes and so on, and I was under it a couple times, where I was out of line on some things and so on. When he looked at you like that, you actually started perspiring. I mean, you did. And he just had that way about him, and it was a very interesting, but again, it was a wonderful servant leader paradox. The paradox is something like, be gentle enough or sensitive enough to be angry. And that anger was to help you, because every time it happened to me, not too often, but when it did, it was a wonderful lesson learned, and I was very careful. I may have still gone back to try, but I did it in a different way. So he taught you, and how to do that. That's one of the things they were very good at, and because it was very hard. You get these small organizations who needed so much help. They had no way. There was no sophistication in those organizations. They didn't have it. And so the foundations started looking for ways. How do we start a not-for-profit legal center? How do we start this and so on? They didn't just say it's your problem. You find out and go and see if you can hire somebody with no money to do it. They said, we're going to help you do it. And that's kind of the forward thinking that you had. And they did take big chances, much more than we ever thought, much more before the Tax Reform Act of '69, which had very punitive restrictions on what you could do and so on, because they were after a small handful of foundations who violated. So instead of going after those foundations, they did this broad, it was awful. And so Russ and people like Bill and Bill White particularly, and it was good at that, and saying, look, this community, we're a community program, we support community. They don't have the resources to do it. Help them. Find out how they can.